Oh God, that background sucks. Hey everyone, welcome to the Women's Empowerment Series. I guess I'm going to have to go to All Natural for today. Thank you all for joining. We got nearly 500 responses, and we are just absolutely ecstatic to be back. About 5 months ago, Michelle Griffin and I created this series to talk about racial and gender injustice within the workforce, but also social media. Since that time, we've had two panels, each one providing a different dynamic than the last. Today, I'm happy to say that we have the most diverse panel that we've ever had, brought to you with a whole bunch of people that will rag on me from the start to the close. So I'm really excited. As always, I want to bring on first and thank my co-host, my co-founder, and the moderator of all moderators, Michelle Griffin, to kick things off.
Hello, Dan. It's so good to be here. Hello, everybody. I'm Michelle Griffin. I'm honored because in January, Dan and I collaborated. I think we actually just even kind of met around then, and we just hit it off and both feeling the need to get changes out there. And where does that start? With conversations, and not just with us, but with people who don't look like us and are like us, and bringing diversity to our panels. I am so honored to moderate today. This is our third installment, our third episode, and we're not stopping. Right, Dan? We're not stopping until we speak, until no one ever wants to hear us again.
Yeah, I mean, let's let the cat out of the bag before we start bringing people on. Next month, we're doing, I don't know what to call it, but we're doing multiple days. You might as well call it a conference.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about that more at the end because I don't want to take away from the amazing panel that we have here. So are we ready to start introducing?
We're ready. Let's get this started.
Here's the problem. All of these people are such good friends of mine, that if I bring up one before the other, no matter which way I look at it, I'm probably getting beat up later. So because it's awkward for her, I am going to bring Jay Will on first.
Happy Wednesday. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I caught you drinking your water, and that's why I brought you on, right?
I know. I was like, he got me. He got me. That's okay. That's okay. I'm always ready. I stay ready, so I don't have to get ready. Thank you guys so much for hosting this panel.
You are so welcome. I love that comment. Hey, Stephanie.
Hi, everybody. Excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And I took a drink of my water while you were bringing Jessica up, taking a drink of her water. So I'm all good.
Dang.
Awesome.
Hello, everyone. Ilya Francis here. How are you, ladies?
Hello, Ilya. Doing well.
It's such a pleasure.
Excited to have you here. Hey, Troy.
Oh, hey, I didn't know I would be next. Hey, Dan, but you're going to get ragged on if I'm last or first.
So yeah, no.
That part.
Absolutely.
I'm grateful for the opportunity. Just want to shout out to Michelle. Pensacola is in the house today.
Always.
But I'm honored to be here today. Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Hey guys, thanks for having me, Dan.
Hey,
I
Michelle.
have no problem being last. I would have volunteered if given the chance, so that's fine.
No, absolutely. And I saved Susie for last in part because we're very lucky. So everybody pretty much knows at this point I work for Zuna Executive Recruiting. And one of the things that we focus on is diversity hiring. Well, the person I'm bringing on last not only is part of diversity hiring in general, but she's also is in the process of creating a platform called goodpeople.ai that allows for companies to be able to create gender neutral job descriptions, which is something that we're very interested in. And I wanted to make sure I gave her a little bit of spotlight. So here is our last but not least guest, Susie Troy.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Gosh, I did not expect that kind of intro, but thanks so much, Dan. Now I'm a bit shy. Wow. But I'm so happy to be here with all of you. I'm so excited for the conversation we're going to have today. So super stoked.
Awesome. Well, should we kick it off and I start my moderating? This is a very, okay, well, as you know, or maybe not know if you haven't joined us before, this is a very organic and real conversation. Don't hold back. Last year or last month, we all got a little teary-eyed. It was very, very powerful. So I'm not trying to make you feel like you're going to cry, but we're going to say powerful things or we're not. So just talk from the heart. That's why we're here. But I'm Michelle Griffin, and I'm here to help you. I'm going to introduce you guys. If you want to just kind of say who you are, what you do, and why you're here, and answer this. Why are you here? What are you trying to see, and what are the problems you're trying to see to evoke change and conversation for change? I'll start with you, Jessica, since we started you first.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm here to bring awareness to some of the tough conversations that a lot of us do not like to have, and making sure that our transparent truths come forward. That's what I'm here for. I'm Black and Mexican, so there are things that I've seen that a lot of people have not, and I want to bring it to the forefront.
Thank you, Jessica. Okay, who are we? Stephanie, how are you? And tell us a little bit more why you're here.
Sure. So I am a retired fintech CFO, and I don't have a company, and I don't do anything now except spend 100% of my time advocating for women in STEM executive leadership. Like Michelle, like you and Dan were saying when we got introduced, like I just keep yelling until someone will listen. I'm very focused on pay transparency, pay equity, and as a side note, I am the mother of 2 amazing mixed race women. So though to look at me, maybe you don't think, she's all about diversity, but let me promise you, it is the only thing that matters to me.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. Ilya, so good to have you here. What brings you?
To be surrounded by you guys.
Awesome. Yes, it's a great panel. I know you have some special topics you want to share because we message each other, but tell us why you're here and why is this important to you?
Yeah, well, since Dan started the Women Empowerment Series, I felt completely attracted to the end goal, which is, normalizing conversations like this in the workplace, as professional women, as business women, and even taking the gender out of the equation. There's an intersection of race, gender, culture, and even religion that plays our part when we try to go and find jobs that are meaningful to us, that actually support our careers, and that definitely are barriers for all of us at some point. And depending on the race, depending on the gender, and even from where you come from, I come from Venezuela. I am Latin American, but I am not the visible minority. I am white Latin American, and it's still, I am an immigrant. And because of that, I was subject of discrimination as soon as I landed here by, people who are, were born in Canada. So I said, like, you know what? Not even as a man, as a woman, or a genderless person that want to basically have a meaningful connection, a meaningful network should go through that. And that's why I'm here. I'm ready to have conversations and advocate for those who really don't know how to step up for themselves.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. That's very important. Now we'll get to you last, Troy. Ladies first. Michelle, my namesake Michelle with the 1L. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be surrounded by all of these incredible voices today. For me, one of the things that's really important, I come from an HR and recruitment background. And so I have seen over the years, because I am pale skinned, I like what you're saying, Ilya, I pass as white. And so I have, I'm Native. And so I've been in rooms and training where things that were totally offensive to my culture were said or done, activities, et cetera. And they're like, yeah, well, when a Native American shows up, then I guess we'll change it. I was like, oh, sad day for you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I have definitely been in those places, and I've seen what people go through and feel like they have to put up with. And I think that having these conversations and educating people about the fact that somebody sees it, somebody knows that it's a problem, and letting people know what you can do about it, and that it's not just the norm or what should be expected, I think is so important. So I'm super excited to be here and be part of that dialogue.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Very important. Susie, how are you? I know you mentioned, and I want to know more about your platform later, but tell us about you, why you're here, and why is this important for you?
Yeah, thanks so much, Michelle. And thanks everyone once again. I'm so excited to be here with you. I don't know how many times I need to repeat it. I'm just super excited. But anyway, the reason why I'm here is everyone here probably understands the biases, the comments, the, passing by on promotions, whatever, the opportunities, because we are not the majority, right? But it's a different era and we need to adapt and we need to evolve. There are many women, and not just women, but underrepresented groups that don't have a voice. And we are so lucky to be on this platform to speak up. But there are many people who don't have a voice. So for me, especially being part of the Asian community, we have that myth of being a model minority, right? Because we're pale skinned, we, align more with, the white people, whatever, but we're not Asian enough because we're Asian American. It's stupid. But I want to break that myth that we are not just model minorities, but we have a voice. And no matter what group you are from, what gender you classify yourself as, you have the power to speak up and make a change if you really want to. So I'm super excited to be here with the same like-minded people to really educate those who may not just be educated enough, right? Or having those comfortable and also uncomfortable conversations. There are people that it's just really innocent that they may not be aware of certain things that are going on just because they do have privilege. And I also acknowledge that I have privilege myself. But for us to keep evolving and adapting, we need to have uncomfortable conversations and speak up so that other people can be aware, and then hopefully we'll have a better world altogether. So I'm super excited to be here.
Michelle,
Thank you.
Before we get to Troy, I want to acknowledge something. So this is me being fully transparent, and I'm not going to have an Umar on the stage right now, but Michelle knows what I'm talking about. Last night I had something personal happen, and the anticipation was that I was going to be a full member of the panel, but I wanted to make sure that we had somebody to cover because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to. So I reached out to Troy this morning on a couple hours notice, and he very graciously agreed to come on. And the reason I asked him and only him was I've known Troy for 6 months, and over that time I've gotten to know him as a person, as a father, as a businessman. And the one thing that you could always count on with Troy is passion and honesty. So whether he's talking about John Maxwell or talking about the racial pay gap, which the next episode is coming up on this Sunday, he's been such a source of such a wealth of information and knowledge and mentorship to me. And that's really why I asked him to be on the stage today. So I just wanted to personally thank him and introduce him. I felt I owed it to him to do that.
I agree. Thank you, Troy, and we're honored to have you here. And
you still getting
especially
ragged,
in
though,
short
Dan.
notice.
You're still getting ragged though, so you're not exempt from that. Yeah, I'm a clown, but yeah, I want to say thank you for the opportunity. And as Dan mentioned on Sunday, I'm doing a part 3 in a room on Clubhouse. It's called the Racial Wealth Gap, and so some things that we've been addressing is number one is take for an example, for every dollar that a man makes, a woman only makes $82. Why do women not get paid the same as a man for doing the same job? And so why do they get paid less, 82 cents on the dollar? If it's a black woman, a black female, it's 68 cents on the high end, 58 cents on the low end. So why the disparity? Why can't everybody get paid the same based on their experience and qualifications? And so it's a problem for me. Then also, I'm doing my research and, came across if a black male with a associate's degree make on average of $18, a white male with no degree no college degree make $19 an hour. Why the disparity? So these are just some things that I've come across, and they need to be addressed. We need to talk about them, figure out ways to come up with solutions and fix them. I have a lot more, but those are just the 2 that I can think of right now. And when I get to talking about this, I kind of get passionate about it because it's what's the word? Righteous indignation.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely, Troy. And before we continue on, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping for the sake of the audience. So, within these discussions, because of how in depth that they get, when we initially did the panel, we thought about doing an hour session with 30 minutes of answering questions. What we've done since then is just that. If there's an opportunity, if there's a natural stopping point where we can stop and then answer questions, then we will do that. However, if the conversation is going to the point where it's actually going to be more of a detriment to stop it than to continue, then at that point, we reserve the right to keep on going. It's really for everybody's benefit that's listening. So hopefully you understand, and we appreciate you for that. And this will be the last I try to overtake Michelle as a moderator. So I'm done.
No, you're fine. No, please, anytime. Okay, so thank you. What a diverse panel for diverse things. Sounds like we all have our own mission and they're all equally important. One of the things I just want to say, an ism that I wanted to bring up that for women, I had this in my Clubhouse panel today. It's about ageism. You know, women who are being aged out. I want to address that too as we think, but I do want you to know my role is more to guide the conversation. You know, I want to hear you. You're our esteemed panelists. So awareness is huge. To start anywhere, someone said this so eloquently, we may not be aware, you know, we just may not be aware. So some of these questions and things might be uncomfortable to people, but I say you can't get through to the good side until you get to the discomfort. So with that being said, what is an example that you have all seen? I'm going to ask you that we need to know about, because I don't want to gloss over anything, you know. So Jessica, let's start with you. If you could tell us, if you could, some story or something we're not aware of that you want to bring to light, please.
Sure, I'll keep it light, actually. So I do a lot of panels. I've done a lot of things in my corporate survival experience. I think the most, I'm going to call it ignorant statement that I've gotten is you're so well-spoken. So I need everyone to understand that is not a compliment. This is not something that I give a damn about, because I'm going to speak how I want to speak, how I feel that moment, that day. And I believe people mean it well, but that's my light note. That is something that is not a compliment. It is not something that I'm eager to hear. It is not something that I give a damn about. So I'm sure we've all heard that in some meeting, in some sort of conversation, whether it's personal or professional. And also, I don't appreciate you looking so shocked. Like, oh, you speak so well. Well, hell, I went to school. So my parents raised me right. You know, it's just, there's a lot of simple ignorance that goes around in the corporate space, that goes around in different panels like this, whether it be Clubhouse, Instagram, like LinkedIn Live. That's something that needs to be acknowledged. It's small, but just cut
not to you.
No, cut the crap.
No. Yeah. How did you handle that when you've been asked out? It sounds like more than once. So what do you acknowledge that statement, or you say anything back?
Yeah, that's ignorant. That's ignorant for you to say. There is no, oh, you speak well. Everyone speaks well. However my message comes out is well. However I want to convey this message is well. So, and you have to put people on the forefront. You have to acknowledge it. You have to be able to put your finger on it, call it out, and move forward. Did you intend for that ridiculous comment? No. But I took it as ridiculous, acknowledge it, and let's move forward.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. I like that. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Stephanie, what is that to you? What have you seen? What do you want to illustrate that in your mission?
I don't even know what direction to go. And I just want to comment that I'm going to be 56 tomorrow. So happy to talk about ageism too.
Stephanie.
Right?
Happy.
As the oldest
happy
one on
birthday.
any panel,
Stephanie.
I'm your girl for
Happy
ageism. Yes,
birthday.
Troy, nice to see you and not just to hear your voice.
Yes, Stephanie. So great. So your birthday is Thursday. I'll be 54 Friday.
Oh, happy birthday to
what,
both of you.
You know what, Troy? I actually made that up. I actually thought today was Thursday. My birthday is also on Friday.
You on the 16th also? Yes.
You see what day? There we go.
Happy birthday.
I am going to stick along the lines with Jessica and talk about, I've been around a lot. So I've seen a lot of stuff and I've seen a lot of horrible stuff. But something that someone said to me when I was sort of a senior director level at a big corporation, and, you know, like I just said, I'm old. So back in the day, I was always the only woman. And I was, you know, I also came up through tech. So, so male dominated and still is, but we can talk about that later. But we were out to dinner and there was 11 men and myself. And it was around dessert time. And someone said, you know, the waiter came around and asked everybody if they wanted dessert. And I said, oh yeah, no, thank you. I don't want any. And somebody said, well, are you watching your weight? And I said, well, yeah, you know, of course I am. And someone else said, don't diet away all things that we like about you and the reasons we keep you around.
Wow.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
Whoa.
Yeah. Lost my
That's
shit
awesome.
on them. Yeah.
Did you good?
Yeah, I did. And you know what? And it was a long time ago. And I was like, you have got to be, and literally in a situation like that, everyone starts laughing, right? But you can always tell there's a couple of guys, a little bit of nervous laughter. The minute you say everything, everybody's eyes go down to the table. Nobody will meet your gaze. So yeah, that was my, I think that was the worst one that anyone ever said in front of my face. Who knows what they were saying behind my back.
Wow.
Facts.
Oh my goodness.
And that's a CFO right there.
That's so much.
Well, I wasn't then, but yeah, I was high. I mean, I was high in the organization then, and they said that to me.
Oh my God. Thank you for sharing that. And that was several years ago too, right? You said?
Oh yeah, it was a long, I mean, this was probably 10 or 15 years ago, but yeah.
Yeah. Goodness. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that, Stephanie. These stories have to come out because how are we going to change? Even though it was 15 years ago, this stuff is still happening, you know?
Absolutely.
So,
you know what, actually, you know what, can I just say one more thing, Michelle, before?
Sure.
So when I retired, so I've been retired about almost going on a year and a half. And when I retired in February of 20 and got active on LinkedIn, because I had been a decision maker in my company, I thought that things had gotten better for women. And I did a post about how, you know, 25 years ago, I had been sexually harassed at work, like literally sexually harassed. And I went to HR and they're like, oh yeah, you probably took it the wrong way. And I had hundreds of emails and voicemails and they had to face it. And I mistakenly kind of thought that things were better for women because it was so many years ago and my organization was not like that. The comments and the private messages that I got, I realized that day that things are literally still horrible for women.
They are horrendous.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what's sad about that, you don't have the men to stand up and say, this needs to stop. This is not right. And until the men do that, it's going to be an issue. There's still going to be a culture issue going on.
I agree. We've had several men on our panel, right? So we're trying to bring that.
Yeah. So Bobby's been on our panel. Felipe has been on our panel. Sid was there for the first month. Obviously, me. Next month, we're going to have a lot of men. It's going to be a very equal mix, but we've been very specific about the men that we've brought on the panel because we want to make sure that there's a conveyed and articulated message that we're on the same page about. Michelle and I are very careful in cultivating who's going to be on each of these for that reason. Even just among the panelists, we look for commonality in language styles and speaking styles because we want to make sure that it's conducive for conversation. And you know, these are the differences we have. Last month, Bobby had a moment, and this month we hear from Stephanie. And I have to say, like, Stephanie was the first person asked about this panel, and like, Stephanie Holt? Yes. At that point, I knew I could have like a killer panel. And it look how well it turned out from there. But no, absolutely. And I'll tell a quick story. And I don't. My father's probably going to kick my tail for telling this, but when I was in high school, my father got my brother and I. And so let me back that up. My father had been a branch manager for a company for 20 some odd years. He was the type of guy that took money out of his own bonus to give to everybody in the office. So he was very, very well loved and respected. And he was told by the company that he would have a job forever. So one Saturday morning, my dad grabs my brother and I and says, okay, well, I need you two to follow me. We didn't know where we were going. We wind up going into his office with nobody there. We packed everything up and left. Keys stayed behind. And I didn't know until later on that the reason that this happened was because his company had got bought out, and they realized, here's this guy, the senior branch manager that's been around for 20 some odd years, making way too much, and decided that he wasn't needed anymore. So instead of sitting there, my father took everything, and I can't get into specifics, but it certainly led to a lawsuit. So ageism is a very, very real thing, and it's not, and it's not going away. And this is something I talk to people about all the time, because there's a lot of women specifically that I'll look at their resumes and there's so many things that are left out. And Jessica and I have talked about this. And the reason is they feel like if they go too far back, then they leave themselves susceptible to ageism. But some of the stuff that they're leaving out is multiple promotions.
Yeah.
And has all this positivity. So it really becomes this conscious decision of, am I going to put myself at risk for ageism, or am I going to show myself in the best light for a future employer? Nobody should have to go through and make that decision.
I agree. Thank you for sharing that. Ageism is real. Ilya, thank you for being here again. Hello. Tell us, I know you shared a little bit of your story, but tell us some more where you've seen that instance where we should be aware. Tell us something as much as you can, and you're willing to share, of course.
Well,
That's impacted you.
Yeah, absolutely. In the eyes of an immigrant to a foreign country with a foreign language, you come with certain expectations, and this is where the cultural barrier hits you right in the head. And you consider that you bring the same standards for the workplace, for a new job market, and you don't know that there's a different way to do things, to relate, to build relationships with people, and even how to start a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I am not the typical immigrant story that comes with a husband and a family from another country. I built my family here in Canada. And because of that, my husband is Canadian, so he has never had the ability to express himself in Spanish. So I learned to communicate since day zero with people that are here, which is an advantage for me. And I realized that as an immigrant, I had the language barrier, but also knowing that how effectively to communicate in the workplace will set me for success, or to set me as as a very limited my opportunities professionally speaking. And that is unfortunately what happens to many immigrant exceptionals that are here, and in not only in the US but also in other parts of the world, that unfortunately because of the inability to communicate or to being subject of bias, culturally speaking, people start declining them job opportunities in the same places that they've had. So when I came here, I said, well, I need to level up myself, and I did it. And I started working for a tech company, and then for a manufacturing company within the health and safety space. Still, although I do not look the part, people will say, "In which part of Mexico are you?" Because people who speak Spanish are all from Mexico, and that is, the little cut. And I say, I am not from Mexico. I am from Venezuela. Where is Venezuela? Or no, you look at Argentina, and that's okay. When people, try to guess your nationality, that's fine. They notice my accent; it's evident. But the fact that all Spanish immigrants are from Mexico, that's a microaggression. And I said no. I took it, lighthearted. I don't take so many things seriously, because then I would be a very sad person. But until what point you allow people to do that is when you perpetuate the problem.
Yes.
You continue allowing the system and things to be normal, like microaggressions to be normal. But you don't need to be that way. You are mansplaining. You're being gaslighted. You're being very aggressive. You're too delicate, and people cannot make jokes about it, and that's okay, because for so long we have been, considered normal, take racial jokes, etc. And within a trustworthy environment, it might be okay. But what are you showing to your work peers that it's okay for you to be treated that way? And then you allow all the races to also be treated that way, and then to be gaslighted. So, and I've experienced that for so long that for me became a normal issue until I realized that it wasn't. So that's one of my main motivations to talk to you guys, because I know that Jessica might have something similar and at the same time different. Michelle, because she doesn't look the part, might hear something that can be extremely offensive, and that person doesn't know about it. But she might say, like, oh no, how are you being here in Canada? People are treating really good about you because you are the immigrant. You are, unfortunately, the story. Come because we need to save you. You are, you start seeing white savior personalities around. And it truly happens with the best of intentions, but unfortunately, it doesn't help. It truly does not help.
I'm working right. Sorry,
go ahead, Michelle.
I'm working right now with somebody who is a candidate that has used our services, who is an immigrant from the Philippines. And she, in the Philippines, was a regional director for HP. So let's put that into perspective. She packed up an incredibly senior job because she fell in love with a guy and moved to Austin. Apparently, there was a lot of negotiation. He assured her that Austin was going to be a great place for her career. This woman has experienced the most insane level of, she has been told by agency recruiters that they will not take her application or can take her phone call until she sends them a copy of her green card. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? They have told her nobody wants to be your first employer in this country because you could just go back to your home country anytime. They have assumed when they saw her resume that she doesn't speak English. Dude, she speaks English better than I do. I mean, not going to lie. Right? Like the level and consistent, she cannot get, even with all of these years of experience, with a huge global name behind her, she cannot get the people in my profession to give her the time of day because of this. And I am heartsick and so angry. And so I hear all of the things that you're saying there, Ilya, and I wish that I felt like, oh man, Canada's a messed up place. But no, like it is absolutely ubiquitous and it's everywhere. And it's at a more profound level than that. This has been a learning point for me. It never occurred to me that in 2021, a recruiter would turn around and say, we won't even consider your application until you send me a copy of your green card. I don't even have words for whoever it was that said those things to her. And it has been more than one.
Yeah,
and
Yeah,
Of
when the tone of the green card, I understand that companies and organizations want stability and the best of the culture, and making sure that the people are there legally. They do not want to carry the legal baggage of a potential employee. I understand totally. But once you're here, once you're legal, once you have, hey, I have my work permit, I have a permanent residence, I am a Canadian citizen, but I still have an accent. Does that become an issue to the HR, to the hiring manager, as a potential friction between the company culture and the real competencies and skills that this person brings to you, to the organization? That's when you need to really understand.
And I think
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and I think your point previously about intersectionality, my husband is British, right? Which is like when regular white isn't white enough, get a Brit, right? And I love him, but he has had none of this drama, right? He has a heavy accent, but they're like, oh my God, I love the way you talk. All of those types of things, right? He hears that constantly. He gets positive affirmation for being an immigrant because he's from a very, very white place. And all of a sudden, when you have candidates from anywhere that is not white, that's when this comes out. And again, it is clear, it clearly is like that intersectionality of racism, of I'm judging by the color of your skin, I'm judging by what I think I know about your country, which I know, Ilya, probably you get all kinds of crazy things that people think they know about your country. And I just apologize on behalf of everybody doing that. But it drives me crazy. And I just really don't understand how people don't see the intersectionality there and don't understand that they're losing talent and that they're pigeonholing people based on things that they are so grossly ignorant of. It just drives me nuts.
And I understand. I don't know whether you all have experience or haven't had within their previous or current career or professional the work environment. Other people who do not speak, who do not speak English with such fluency that it becomes like even you can see it in the faces when you're speaking to a person and you might make a mistake because it's okay. We have a second language. You start seeing people very uncomfortable, or because I do not talk like Sofia Vergara, for example, that I don't. Oh, but you speak very well, and yes, I learned the language, but I have a mother tongue, and that goes through and becomes beautiful and unique about me. But that is okay when you see. Okay, we are Latin Americans, but what about people from Eastern Asia that have a very thick accent? People do not want to they say, I don't understand you, I don't want to understand you, and maybe you are relegated to other positions that might not represent other responsibilities, rather than guiding them and mentoring them. So breaking down one bias is just take them and mentor them and help them overcome those maybe language barriers or communication barriers that we have.
Absolutely.
So this brings up an interesting point that I'd like to throw out to Troy and Jessica specifically. I think some of what we're getting into is relating a bit to code switching as different people are having to accommodate in different environments. So Jessica, I mean, I'll really ask you, how do you feel code switching correlates to this conversation? And if you could explain what it is for the average audience.
Yeah, definitely. It goes back to the whole I speak well. I have to code switch in different environments. I have to be able to connect with people in the audience. And as ignorant as it sounds, I have to change the way that I speak. I can't say things. I can't say certain phrases. I have to make sure that I'm walking on eggshells, essentially. So if I go to different, that's why I became an entrepreneur, because if I want a message to be conveyed, I'm going to say it how I need it to be said. But you're making other people feel comfortable, essentially. You're making other people be aligned with your message because that's how they want to hear it. And I think it is. It's a part of corporate. Like I said, I survived 13 years in corporate code switching because that's the only way you're going to listen to me. That's the only way I was able to build credibility in those corporate spaces. And unfortunately, even with code switching, I was only promoted once, and that was in 2013 by a Black man. And I am on my ish. I'm tough. So it takes a toll. 13 years, I couldn't do it anymore. 13 years of code switching, 13 years of making sure that I sat up straight and I wore the right clothing and I said the right things. You code switch a lot to be accepted because you have to be. You have no other choice if you don't want to see some type of escalation in your ladder, in your professional ladder. So I'm going to tap it to Troy to see how he feels.
Yeah, I agree. You know, being a Black male, I have a different perspective and experience. So being a Black male, many times we have to do twice as much as the work to prove ourselves.
Yep.
We have to, as Jessica said, we have to, you know, code switch in certain spaces, you know, to be accepted. Also, another thing that I don't know people is aware of, I tell, you know, people who teach a Sunday school class, you know, a young 16 or 19 year old, and I would tell them, I said, look, when you get ready to have children, think about the name that you give them, because when you send them in a resume with a certain culture name, you're going to be excluded just like that. And so there's things that as African Americans, as Black, that we don't have the same experience. We don't always get the same opportunities for promotions. We get skipped over, and I've known myself and people who've had the qualifications, and you start doing deductive reasoning and said the only other reason is because I'm Black. You know, I'm reminded of the quote with the former Attorney General Bill Barr. He says a phenomenon that Black males are always deemed suspicious and never given the benefit of the doubt. And that's true. So when I go work somewhere or something, I got to make sure I'm not put in a position that I'm questioned or my integrity because I'm Black. Yeah. You know, so those are the things that as a Black male, we have to navigate that many times people don't know. We don't even have these conversations. And the only reason why I'm sharing it because this is with this topic, but just having a normal conversation with someone who's a person of color, I won't have this conversation. But some of us, people of color, we'll talk about these because we know we have to navigate certain things. We can't really get angry and express ourselves because we're gonna be labeled an angry Black man or angry Black female.
Black woman, right?
Yeah,
You're always angry.
Right. Yeah.
You're always angry.
No, I'm just like now. I'm just expressing myself, and I talk.
Right.
I'm not angry. I'm just passive, you know. So those are the microaggressions and the code switching things that we have to be careful about, you know, to make sure that we don't come off a certain way in corporate America.
And I'm going to double back on that and quote my pops. My dad always told us when we were younger, you have to work 10 times as hard to be acknowledged half as much because you're a double minority. I'm a woman and I'm a biracial.
True.
So when you show up, there is no option but to be great. There is no option to mess up because as soon as you mess up, that's it. You get no leeway. You don't get a second chance. So you may hold a high platform or high level somewhere, but as soon as you make that one tiny mistake that could have been rectified by a conversation, there is no grace. You get no platform. You get no help. So go ahead, Michelle.
No, I was going to say, so for me, like I totally understand all of that. And for me, related to that, I actually got called out by a friend of mine the other day. Like I think of myself as a pretty savvy ally, and I screwed up the other day. And I pointed out his code switching because we're friends. I'm like, who is this guy at this lunch with me? What? And he was like, girl, shut your face. He was like, I don't know that white woman that we're here with. Come on now. I have like, and it did not even, it was so far removed from my experience, even as somebody who tries really hard to be an ally, that I was just, it was so jarring. I'm like, that doesn't sound like my friend. What? And not even in a, like, and I know you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Like, not even in a, like, he wasn't dropping F-bombs because he wasn't playing Mario Kart with my husband, right?
Right. He was just calling you to.
But no. But yeah, and I felt terrible, like, as an ally, that I had, like, in his world, what he explained to me was, he was like, you made me feel just laid out, like, so vulnerable. He was like, that's my armor. I don't know these people. I don't know how they're judging me. I know that they are judging me because that's what this society has taught me. And you just ripped that off in 10 seconds with a comment you didn't even think of. And I felt this big, but I think that it was such an important lesson for me as an ally, that I think that because it's not our experience, it's an easy one, even for those of us that want to have your backs, to screw up on. So I think it's important to say that.
I want to say something about this too. So, obviously I don't know the experience, but I have been married to a Black man for 31 years. And when I walk in the door, I know if he's on a call with his friend or a work call. But I do want to say that the answer for people who want to be allies in my life has been, let me switch up. The answer is not saying you need to stand up for yourself. Right? The answer is fixing the system. The answer is not saying, like, oh, you need to do this differently, you need to do this differently, you need to do this differently. The answer is looking internally at the system that's causing this to happen and doing whatever small part you can to fix that, not putting more pressure on your friends or the people you love or your colleagues or strangers to change even more. And you know what? And that's been a hard lesson for me to learn as a blonde California girl, right? So you really need to think about when you're trying to help and when you're trying to change what it is that you're doing, and if you're creating more harm than good.
So and let me give you a quick one. I'm in Florida. Okay, I'm in Pensacola. It's hot and humid. A white guy can go in an interview with Dockers and shorts and maybe a polo shirt. A Black guy gotta come with a suit and tie, because he's, and your tie
better be straight.
Right? Yeah, he's gonna be judged different. We can't get away with that casual dress and look, but a white guy can come and get away with it. So we always have to be aware of that type of thing. And then I used to teach my son. My son, he's 28, but a few years ago, my son, he had dreadlocks, or he wanted them, and I said, so I don't think that's a good idea. Why? Well, this is what I want to wear. I said, because when you try to go for an interview, you're going to be judged and looked at a certain way because you got dreadlocks. I said, just get you a normal haircut. He argued with me, and he still have dreadlocks now, but I had to explain that to him, just the way society perceive him. Yeah. These are things that he has to navigate through. And many times people don't know that.
Every single day. Every single day. You have to take a look at everything from your hair down to your shoes.
Yes.
If you wear sneakers, I'm going to look at you a certain way. Yes. If you don't have your pants creased, I'm going to look at you a certain way. And it's unfortunate. Everybody else gets to be lax and have their own comfort in being who they are.
Yeah.
You don't get that luxury.
I want to call something out real quick. First of all, my daughter must love this, because in order to get her to be quiet, I just had to give her Lucky Charms. But here's the thing.
I know what it feels.
I know. Here's the thing, and this gets me a little bit upset. The reality is that there's going to be a lot of members of the audience that have no idea what code switching is. And a lot of members of the audience that have never heard of Black Wall Street. And there's going to be a lot of members of the audience that are going to hear that and not care to go back and look. The reality is that these are all things that, if you want to talk about true history, you need to be aware of in order to have an understanding, or even a slight of an understanding, of how diversity works within our country. you need to read books like White Fragility, which is not an easy book to read, which deconstructs and talks about how racism is a construct of oppression, a construct of ways to make it seem like there's a reason to feel like you're better than somebody when you're not. There's books like, and by the way, nobody's paying me to do this, there's books like Plantation Theory by John Graham Jr. That talk about what it's really like. And as a white person, first of all, I know that a lot of people hate the term ally. Sharon Boyd called me an accomplice. I wasn't really sure what that meant, but because she said it, I feel confident in calling myself it, because the way that it's looked at in a lot of situations is you had 400, and I'm saying you as in white people, had 450 years to correct the actions. Why is suddenly, since George Floyd, do you want to take interest in doing this? So the question that I've gone asked now 3 times in the last week is, as an accomplice, how far are you willing to go? And they're not talking about how far in terms of doing speeches. They're not talking about how far in terms of leading clubhouse rooms. What's being talked about is, are you willing to lose friends? Are you willing to feel alienated from other people? Are you willing to take it to understand that Black people are not always going to be appreciative of what you're willing to do, and it's their right because of the oppression that they have faced? Are you willing to take these risks and be up at night, upset over the situation that is going on, and knowing that you can't do anything in the immediate that's going to make it better because the issues that we're dealing with are systemic?
Yeah.
And it is. And Dan, think about this. There was this is news. 3 days ago, we had a soccer match. 3 Black guys missed the goals, and then they started getting racist comments.
Quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Yeah, but people don't realize this is more deeper than the sports. You got to go back to slavery days. Many times, the only thing that we were as Blacks and African Americans, we were either to work or entertain you. That was what our job is. They either wanted us to entertain them or work or do some type of labor. And what people are saying is, the only thing we want you to do is entertain us. We don't care about nothing else. You just entertain us, and if you don't make that win and make us excited about entertainment, then we're gonna start calling you racist names. A lot of this is deeper than what we really see. It's in so many organizations. The NBA, I mentioned the NBA. The NBA is 74% African Americans. They only have 4 Black coaches.
Think about that. Put that into perspective.
That's right. And how many Black owners? Yeah. No.
Yeah.
0.
That
0.
part.
And then the NFL.
I knew the answer to that before I asked the question.
Right.
Troy.
Yeah.
Admittedly.
Right. 69% of the NFL is Black, but they only have I think 2 Black coaches and 2 GMs. They have no Black owners. They have 1 minority owner, the Jacksonville Jaguars. But why not? Why are there no GMs and executives, higher level management positions? And we're 60 and 70%. We're entertaining.
Because we're good enough to entertain you.
Correct.
We're good enough to entertain you. We're not good enough to give you a strategy or infrastructure, but we're definitely good enough to entertain you and make sure that we're making your team win and all that other crap.
Yeah.
And that goes to, I also want to tie in Dan's point about allyship and stuff. Think about how frustrating it is that you need an ally to advocate for how damn good you are.
Yeah.
Think about how frustrating it is that I have to get a promotion because my white counterpart says that I deserve it. There is no excuse. There is.
I want Susie to speak because Susie ain't said something, but I want to bring up Rachel Nichols.
Yeah.
Rachel Nichols. I don't know if y'all know who Rachel Nichols was, but Rachel Nichols was an ESPN reporter. She's a top reporter.
Yeah.
And so she made mention that the only reason why Maria Taylor, a Black female, got the position because she was Black. But she was the one talking about Black Lives Matter and stuff when that was going down with George Floyd. So now she's saying, oh, long as it don't affect me, I'm okay with it.
Then I'm fine. Then it's good.
And so these are issues. Y'all see how I get past. These are issues that we deal with all the times, minorities and women and people many times say you're whining, you're complaining, but it's a reality for me. And
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I
I
do
think-
want to say one thing about that, though, and I'm not defending her. I mean, you guys know that. I do think that part of her point was valid, which is you don't take the tiny part of the pie that you have said, okay, that's for women, and then split it among the women, right? You don't
I
say
agree,
the
Stephanie,
4% of the
yeah.
pie, you know, if there's another woman, whatever she
Yeah.
looks like, that 4% has to be split. What you say is, we have another incredibly talented woman, and we've got 50 shitty men. So what part of their job is she going to take, right?
Right.
So I mean, so I do think she was completely wrong and off the rails and horrible. But that part of what she thought, I believe, is valid in any organization. It's not that
And she
women get
mentioned-
this much and then you split it up.
Right. And she mentioned that, and what she said was, we know ESPN's history of diversity is terrible. So, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think just going along with what you were talking about the lack of like the control and the power resting with minorities in sports arenas and that sort of thing, I think there's an interesting correlation with that with HR in general. So there's a lot of talk about how HR is the women's profession, right? That like I think it's 87% of HR professionals are women at the non-executive level.
That's right. That's right.
Oh,
At
wow.
the executive
Disclaimer.
level,
Wow.
it's 40%. Soon as somebody's got some power, got control, all of a sudden the women are gone. And that is absolutely like that is I always, for me, I get so angry when I hear people say things like, oh, we need more men in HR. There's already many women in HR. The problem with HR from a diversity perspective is we need more male voices. You got plenty right up at the top.
And those leaders don't have HR. And those male leaders in HR don't have HR backgrounds.
They come from
Or
finance, they
experience.
come from
That's right.
operations.
They need to make them an executive.
That's right.
Yeah. So they're like, oh, you led engineering. It's time for a promotion. Come into HR. Come on.
Let's
come
do
on,
HR.
Senior VP of HR. It's horrific.
Hey guys, let's Susie. I want Susie to tell us her story. I've been taking it all in like Susie, but Susie,
Susie's never short to speak either.
I want to hear Susie's take on everyone shared their story, and I'd love to hear yours about what you've seen, what you've heard, what you've been exposed to.
Yeah. Well, I like listening to everyone's stories just because it's a lot of different experiences that some I have experienced along with you, some I haven't. So it's really great to hear like other experiences. But other than that, God, like I don't know where to start or what examples to really share. But I guess just because we're on the topic of ageism, what I will share is one of my own personal examples is Asians typically, like, we look younger than, we are, right? That's just how it is sometimes. Maybe it's the good genes, who knows? Like, I don't know. But sometimes our voices also come off younger. And it's not just for Asians, it's for any type of woman, right? So when you're writing emails, your candidates or whoever you're talking to have this very professional manner. But once they see you, or if they're having a conversation with you just because your voice sounds younger, their tone and the way they respect you just changes. And all of a sudden, the way they address you is like, oh, it's okay, sweetie. I'm like, no, don't sweetie me. When before you were referring to me as my name, but all of a sudden, because you see me on the screen or because you have a conversation with me, the way you address me is now sweetie. I am not your sweetie, right? I'm either the person that either gets you positioned in our company or work strategy with you or with partnerships. I'm not the person that's maybe your secretary or maybe doing a little favor and you think of me any less than I am. So that's one of my personal experiences, even with my partner too, right? He is very ambitious as well. And I just want to give it from his just perspective. But he is basically right below the CFO. And he's worked with his CFO before, and then he came over to a new company when his CFO recruited him. Initially, he was going to come in as a VP, but because of the age difference, because all the other VPs are in their, I would say, mid-40s and above, he's in his, I would say, he hasn't even reached 35. But just because of that age difference, although he can perform the job, just for optics, they decided on, hey, why don't you show them what you can perform in a year, and then we will promote you to VP. It's just like, no, it has nothing to do with optics or like your experience. Everyone knows you're more than qualified. Your CFO knows you're more than qualified. This is just bullshit. I'm just gonna say it. It's bullshit, right?
So ageism works both ways.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's not just on the older spectrum, but it also happens on the younger spectrum when we are qualified and we can perform the position. Yet just because we're not a certain age or we don't have X amount of like total experiences for an executive level or C level, we get passed on that promotion. So I feel like it can come off of both areas, right? Even mothers or even single parents. I wouldn't just say single mothers, right? Or just mothers, people that are trying to come back into the workforce after they are taking care of their family, just because they have a gap. People and corporations and many other people think that they are not qualified to come back in, or they're just falling behind and, the innovative experiences, tech, whatever, whatnot. That's bullshit too, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone is more than capable to coming back into the workforce and to pick up from wherever they left off. But there's just this wrong idea of, oh, just because you've been out or just because you've been a single parent or a parent to your children, you're no longer qualified. And people need to take that away. And I just really hate seeing that across so many different spectrums in the corporate world. So yeah, ageism can happen in all different areas of the spectrum. That's one thing I want to say.
So real quick, we've been going now an hour. Unsurprisingly, I think we are not going to stop for questions. In fact, I think we're just going to do away with that altogether because these conversations have been too great over the last 3 months to do that. And I do need 5 minutes at the end for Michelle and I to set the stage for next month. In saying that, I want to tell everybody that we truly appreciate all of you, and we'll get to more of that later. But we've had some great feedback, some great discussion in the comments. Just because I haven't highlighted, please do not take that as ignorance. Please do not take that as ignoring you. Just with how many people we have on stage, I try to be very careful with the comments that I put up and how often. But please know you are seen and appreciated.
Definitely.
I just want to respond to what Susie was talking about the lack of, about how ageism cuts both ways. And I think as a recruiter, I hear everything as a recruiter. People treat me like I'm some kind of a confessional. They're like, don't tell HR this, but I'm not hiring them because blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what? So what I hear, and this drives me nuts, if I get a resume that is a bad resume, and I put it forward, and it's somebody who's a recent grad, they're like, oh, their mom wrote it. Oh, bless them. And it's like, they get this like, oh, isn't that cute? Resume sucks, but let's have a look. Bless little Davy, right? If you get that from somebody who's had more experience, so like, they're obviously out of touch and don't know anything about the current market. Wait a minute. They're both bad resumes for the same reasons. And it is this ridiculous double standard. If as an older candidate, I have hiring managers who are like, I went to their LinkedIn and it wasn't really very populated. Are you sure they're technically savvy? Because they don't choose to spew all of their life all over damn social media doesn't mean that they don't know how to work a computer. Like, they're two different skill sets. And it's so frustrating to me that like we let, when they're younger candidates, the answer is, oh, well, they're probably not on LinkedIn because they're on the TikTok. I hear that's all the rage these days. But then when it's an older candidate, the answer is, oh, well, they're clearly out of touch with the marketplace and we can't have them. I've had that for our marketing people. I've had it for IT, like senior IT project managers. I'm like, why do you give a shit if they're on LinkedIn all day long or not? If they've got that much content on LinkedIn, I know how long it takes me to put all the content I put on LinkedIn. That's like a part-time job.
Right?
Yeah.
You want somebody who doesn't have any LinkedIn presence because that means they're busy doing their job. And so, oh, yes, it drives me freaking nuts. And at the same time, to your point about the returning to work thing, I have a guy who stepped out to care for his kids for 8 years. and now he's trying to go back in. And he has said to me, he was like, I had no idea. I had no idea. He was like, the things that women go through because we expect this of women. And it's been interesting because we are struggling to even find resources to help him, because the few resources there are all for returning mothers. This guy is like a senior PM from a gaming background. He knows his stuff. Like, people are like, oh, well, but did he forget? I don't think he forgot how to talk to people.
Right.
I think he's probably still got that one down.
He probably talks to people better than folks in corporate.
Yeah, he wants to
have more
talk to
empathy.
him because he's only had tiny children for 8 years. He's like, please give me some meetings. How
need
can
adults.
I Zoom? Right?
Michelle,
And so,
I got a
yeah,
question.
it drives me crazy.
You know what? I want to respond to what Susie said too. And I believe in, and I do a lot of keynotes and I talk about this with women, this whole return to the workforce. Number one, if you can get a 2-year-old to eat your peas, you can do just about anything.
That
But
part.
secondly, it's incredibly important when you are interviewing with companies to talk to every single person from the company that you're interviewing with and ask them what their path to leadership is. Because you don't want to be in a situation where it's like, you're good at your job, you manage that. You're good at that, you manage that, right? You want to know that there's different paths, and you want to know that the organization is thinking about that. And that is what makes things easier for women. Because, to both your guys' points, of course you don't forget everything you ever knew. But a lot of companies that have this sort of traditional path want to treat you like that. So that's an incredibly important thing, to ask every single person you interview with. Because a lot of people, God, I don't really
Stephanie,
know
nobody's
what
ever
the
going to
path
take a
is.
job. If they
Yeah.
follow your instructions, there aren't going to be any jobs because there aren't,
right.
like, that's what everything is, right? Oh, you're great at this as an individual contributor. Clearly, we should put you in charge of all of the people doing it. What?
Right.
So, absolutely. But my concern with that is, again, like, we're at, like, right now, I am seeing for the first time as a recruiter, and I'm super excited that people are just saying no. They're just saying, you know what,
Good.
that is a bullshit thing, and I'm going to walk
Good.
away.
Good.
Good.
I'm just
we
not
like that.
going to take that job. Oh, you want me to do work for free for you that you can use afterwards as part of your application process? Sorry,
Heck
jog
no.
on.
Absolutely
And they're
not.
asking those questions, but I wonder how long is that sustainable? I'm loving it, because I feel like it's the only way to hold employers accountable. But at the same time, at the end of the day, girls got to eat, right?
Well, yeah, it's
And
until the next
so-
cycle, right? It's until the next
Right.
cycle. Because last year it was an employees market. No, sorry, wrong way. Last year it was an employers market. Right now
Yeah.
it's an employees market. And I mean, when you get old enough, right? You've been through that cycle so many times, and you realize that you always keep your resume updated. So the minute it's an employees market, you get your shit out there.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Can I jump in real quick, Dan?
Yeah, after you. After
Okay,
you,
I just want to jump in because Stephanie said the magic word. I'm a resume finesser. So for our people who are in this job snatcher market, you want to create a pandemic snapshot. Let people know what the hell you've been doing. Did you learn new technology? Did you learn new software? Did you learn new operations? Put that in your resume and stop playing with people. Susie mentioned moms and parents returning back to work. Please, you just managed. You were able to do hazardous management.
Look,
You've been able to communicate. Right. You have chameleon communication style. Like, come on, let's put it on the resume. So that way, when you do return, they're going to say, what the hell? Oh, we need you. You're the leadership.
What
we've
is
been
that
looking for."
called? What did you call it, Jessica? A pandemic spotlight?
Pandemic snapshot. So for my
Snapshot.
people,
That's smart.
yeah,
Okay.
for job snatchers who are ready to get back into this market, you create a pandemic snapshot. First of all, people are going to say, what the hell? Then I have to read it at this point.
right.
Put your power punches on there, your impacts and your value. Watch you snatch that next job. I'm saying.
I love it.
And
Great
Jeff,
idea.
There's a couple of things with this, and first I want to address Stephanie. One of the main reasons, or not one of the main reasons, but one of the reasons I'd asked Stephanie to come on the panel is because as a female CFO, we don't see that enough. And we haven't gone into it to the extent that I would like to. So I want to formally extend an invitation for you to come on a live with Michelle and I to expand on that because I think that's something that really does need to get spoken about.
Totally.
To kind of go with Michelle and Jessica, who there should be no surprise for anybody that knows the lives that Jessica and I do together, that we're on the same page. But this, what Michelle is talking about with how sustainable it is, it expands beyond. It expands to neurodiversity, expands to disability rights. I mean,
Yeah.
when you poll recruiters, and this kind of just sucks, and you ask them, should you put anxiety and depression on your ADA form, even though it's supposed to be locked, sealed away, put in the basket, they'll most oftentimes tell you no. And it's because it's not a fear of, it's just an active, conscious or unconscious bias that's prevalent in society, that if somebody has an outlying condition, outlying whatever, that they're going to be problematic. Companies don't want to spend the money to make accommodations. Yet, if you truly look, there's other factors to look at. If you just go based on statistics, people only have about a 60 to 75 minute time span to be at full focus. After that, they need about a 20-minute break to come back. Well, if you create these facilities inside your organization that allow for these accommodations, that helps accelerate that, because there's not the stagnation of having to sit right where you are, do right what you're doing, focus right here for that entire length of time. So there's so many different facilities that are intricately a part of what Michelle is talking about that expand so much. And I just don't want to overlook those. And I'm talking fast because this is supposed to be about the rest of the panel. And also, I'm kind of jazz Jersey coffee right now. So.
Hey, Dan,
Michelle,
shout out to your new T-shirt. You want to show everyone your
Yeah.
T-shirt you bought for today?
Beautiful.
There it is.
like
There
it.
it is.
Michelle.
Wait, I
And-
want to pitch into to what everyone just kind of said, just little nitpicks. One, I know we were talking about hair before. I will let you know right now, it is illegal to discriminate a person based on their hair. And you can actually sue a company. So I want everyone that does not know about that to be aware of that. Two, companies are not allowed to ask you formally if you are a U.S. citizen. That is illegal as well. And that goes against EO compliance. So you can report that company as well. Anything with race, sex, gender, religion, those can all be reported. So for the people that think, oh my gosh, they're just harassing me and they're asking me, are these maybe inappropriate questions? They are, and you should report them, because we don't want people like that working in HR and, you know, people, talent, culture, etc.
And age too, right? Obviously.
Yes.
Age is a
Any inappropriate, all those categories are inappropriate and they are not allowed. And then second of all, gosh, I was trying to remember what someone also said before. What were we talking about?
Wait, you know what, Susie? Can I just jump in there while you're remembering the other thing? In the U.S.
Yes, in the
Those
U.S.
things are
In the
in
US,
not
yeah.
not worldwide.
Of course, yes. Of course, if you're working with GovCon, like security positions, yes, you do need to be at least a U.S. citizen to get, you know, a secret clearance or above. So that's not them discriminating. It's just you can't get a government clearance. That's all. But a public trust, you can have a green card because you're dealing with classified information. So in those situations, the scenario can kind of, you know, change and all. But if I think of the other thing I was gonna bring up, I'll bring it up. We're
I got a
talking
question. So let's say somebody like me. So I have a corporate job and I have a business, but I don't have my corporate job on my LinkedIn.
Mhm.
So if I was looking for a job, would recruiters and employers, would they down on me because would they look down on me because I don't have my current job on my LinkedIn profile?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
From the
If
first.
he doesn't have his current job on there, so it just looks like he
Yeah.
just stopped working however many years ago. Absolutely. Dan's shaking his head at me. But yeah, so we absolutely would basically your resume and your LinkedIn profile should broadly match in terms of the arc of your career, etc. And so when I look at a LinkedIn profile, and full disclosure, as a recruiter right now, all of my sourcers, I never see resumes. I just get a LinkedIn URL. And so when I get a LinkedIn URL, if I get it from a sourcer and I'm like, this guy hasn't, like, is he still at XYZ Corp? And like, it just depends. So I've had people who they have, like, when they left that role, and so like it looks like they left that last position in 2018, and I'm like, well, what have they been doing since then? And so then, yeah, absolutely, people would look at that and at least have a question mark, Troy. Like, would I look down on it? I'm not the kind of person that cares about gaps. So I think I'm probably an atypical recruiter. So
I'm not looking, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
in case
No, yeah.
I did, because here's the reason why I don't have my current job. Number one is giving that job free advertisement. And I'm building Troy Hope Consulting. So I'm building my brand and my business. So that's the first thing. Secondly, I may say something in this discussion that the company may know, and I'm connected with people, and I don't want to give no doors or avenues for people to come and say, oh, you said this, we don't agree, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Real quick, one second, everyone. So we have about 8 minutes to go before we have to close up. I don't want to lose this, but there's also a comment that came in that I think we need to bring up, and the reason I haven't is because it's going to cover Michelle's face. But Morgan McBride mentioned, I've conducted interviews in the past where my boss turned to me after and said, she's perfect, but she's pregnant. I could not believe that the woman who I felt was my mentor voiced that. I would like, not that I am the moderator because that's Michelle, I don't want to steal her thunder, but I do want to get everybody's opinion on that. And then after this, I think, Michelle, we need to go to last words before.
Yeah. No, that's important. I'm glad this is another ism we didn't talk about. So,
You know, it's so funny. This was actually the thing that I forgot to talk about when people brought it up. So, wow, Morgan, thank you so much. You just
Susie, it triggered, huh, Susie?
Wow, okay. Wow, that's coincidence. But real quickly, I'll just say my piece and I'll pass it back over to you all. In the business aspect, I understand they are a business, so of course they will bring it up. I'm just going to be frank. If they are expecting you, or if you do say you're pregnant, of course, just aside from like offline, they'll talk about it. Oh God, but she's pregnant. She's going to be away. She's going to take X amount of time off, depending on what the paternity and maternity leave is. But it's wrong, right? Ultimately, it is wrong. And looking at the benefits of maternal and paternal leave, paternity and maternity leave, we are eons behind Europe. If you look at theirs compared to ours, it's a shit show, right?
Times infinity, yes.
Yes. And I hear people in Europe, they're like, oh, I only get a year off. I'm like, do you know how much you get off? Like, the better companies maybe give you 4 to 6 months, but some companies give you 4 weeks. And
6 weeks, 6 weeks in California.
Exactly. So depending on how much pain you went through, surgery, etc., sometimes that amount of time is not enough, just clinically. So it's a big issue that needs to be really addressed, and we need to start following the benefits of Europe. And just so many people just don't realize how far we are behind for the women in that kind of aspect. So that's what I want to just bring up.
Yeah, I know women who literally, so my sister was a daycare worker. She's now a teacher. But when she had her first son, she was working in daycare hourly, 15 hours a day at $15 an hour. And that was, they had no paid maternity leave. And so she literally went in tears to her doctor, begging for them to sign her to be able to go back after 1 week, because she was not going to be able to make rent if she could not work. And I just think that any organization that treats people like that needs to take a long, hard look at themselves. Like, if that's where we're at, if that's what it takes for your business to succeed, is for a mother to have less than a week to recover after having a child, or she can't eat, you're part of the problem.
To something that Michelle, you said before about, the 6 or 8 interviews. So my daughter, who I'm currently referring to as my grandbaby mama, so she had an 8-week interview process and got pregnant during the process. And then when it was time, so she accepted the position, didn't know she was pregnant yet. And then she's like, Mom, what do I do? Do I tell them now? Do I do whatever? And I mean, you know what? The companies that are going to put you through a process like that, they get what they get.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they can't. And I right before I left, we hired someone basically that was 7.5 months pregnant, knowing that she wouldn't even be up to speed when she, you know, had the baby or was going to go out on maternity. But we wanted to have her tied up for when she was ready to come back. She was so good. So, you know, I get a lot of questions on LinkedIn from people, which is like, particularly during COVID, you could keep it secret, right? Saying, should I tell? Should I not tell? What should I do? And, you know, I mean, I like to err on the side of honesty unless your company just sucks, because I think that makes it a better experience for when you come back. But it's a real problem. And we haven't talked about this, and I'll just say perspective. You know, I was an expat in Asia, and literally there, you attached your picture to your resume, and your age was one of the things that was discussed, because it was like, okay, we will get her for, you know, she's 20, and your age and everything was on there. So it's like, okay, she's 24 years old. Your marital status was on there. She's 24 years old and married. The number of children that you have is on your CV. We're like, okay, she's 24 years old. She's married. She has one child. We'll get her for 18 months before she has another. And that was part of the equation. And that was one of the things I was like, is this not a human rights violation? Like, how are we doing this? But it was absolutely part of the discussion. And it's a part of the discussion in a lot of places in the world that, you know, are hiring high-level tech people, and it's criminal.
Yeah, I agree with Steph. That's the Asian culture, right? And that's what's expected. But if you have those same criteria happening here, people are going to be like, no, that's not right. And I think that's a big issue that Asia is kind of facing right now.
Yeah.
So I think that's a place we need to pause, because we do have a number of panelists that have a hard stop. So, so Michelle, let's give. Sorry, I feel like I'm over talking.
No, I feel like I didn't do my job today because I'm in awe listening. And that's what it was. I'm just here to guide the conversation. And what a conversation it was. I'm missing a part 2 with these panelists.
Yeah,
Maybe they'll come back in a month or 2 or 2 months, 3, whatever the next opening is.
Well,
I just want to say one thing. I've seen a few comments for people who just jumped on late. We're going to have this entire show put on. We have a LinkedIn page, right, Dan?
So, so it's going to be on LinkedIn. It's going to be on YouTube. It's also broadcast on Facebook. So I'm going to post it afterwards. Here's what we can do, Michelle. We can have everybody do a last word. I'm fine staying 5 minutes after to go through next month.
To close it out.
Yeah. So let's get to everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do real quick, just give everyone time. Let's say some last parting words. We started this conversation. We are not done, never going to be done. What's your takeaway, Jessica? If you want everyone to know one thing today about taking change, moving it forward.
Dang it, I was on mute. I was getting into it. My takeaway from this is, if a company or hiring manager or recruiter feels comfortable enough to make you feel uncomfortable, you return that energy. It is okay to ask the hard questions. It is okay to put them on their toes. And it's okay to give them a little razzle dazzle with your perspective. That's my takeaway. This was an amazing conversation. Everyone on this panel shared some real gems. And I'm like, I can't wait to connect with these people offline. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for enlightening us so much more about all the stuff you shared was just so important. I'd love to have this entire panel back. Can we do that, Dan, maybe?
We have August already planned, but what I would say,
September, October. We'll talk.
If you want to hear more from Jessica and I are live every Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific. So
yes, that's right.
There.
So tune in there. So thank you so much. Stephanie, thank you so much for your story, your examples. What can we what's your takeaway? What we can
you know what? I'm gonna use this moment for a plug to talk about my favorite thing. And that is, you should be talking to people about your salary. The only way that we can guarantee pay equity, and the companies are not going to want you to do it, and maybe the recruiters are not going to want you to do it anyway. And be the kind of person that says, I'm a software engineer at this company and I make $180,000 a year, and particularly do it if you are a man. And we need to normalize talking about your pay, because that is the only way we can make sure people are getting paid fairly.
Preach.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Stephanie.
Thank you, Stephanie.
As we go through final words, I'm going to be pulling everybody off the stage. So going through. So
All right.
thank you so much for being
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Ilya, thank you for sharing your stories, your powerful stories. What is your takeaway you want us to know as you leave today?
It's all a matter of perspective, and from now is not letting yourself be passive, but setting a new normal, a new standard, and a practice. It is not enough to shine and share in a LinkedIn post that you have a DEI course, because that is the very, very bottom of your journey as an ally, as an accomplice, and stand up for those who are in disadvantage. Right now, there are three phases. When you are not a minority, like I am, even though I am Latin American, you have awareness, you have the perspective, you got to be educated by yourself, by your own initiative, and then you got to practice. You got to go for it. Whether you are advocating for yourself as a woman or as a neutral gender, as an ally or as an accomplice for people who have different races, who are seen as inferior, because in this race of equity, like in this rally of being equitable or creating equitable workspaces, what we accept will continue to perpetuate and be a part of the problem. So if it is because of your gender, because you have a baby that is with you and that you can't, you don't have childcare, you gotta talk, you gotta negotiate and find those places where you are really welcome, that they already understand that you are a human and that you chose to have a family. That's the most important thing. And find your new normal. Find those companies that accept those. I know that it's hard because with the pandemic, millions of women stayed home. Millions of women lost their jobs, or they were forced to do it. Oh, Jassy. We're going to end up with Jazz. So they were forced to stay home. So find a new normal and never set yourself for less. Those are my
Thanks.
Thank you, Ilya. Thank you. Michelle, thank you for sharing your stories, your examples. What are your takeaways today?
So I think my takeaway is a little more hopeful. I feel like the group of people that we brought here today have the things that they have in common are the crap they've had to put up with and they've seen perpetrated against other people. But we are all rallying together to make the world better and to have these hard conversations and to not let it continue. And I am really heartened over and again that one of the things that I'm really proud to use my platform for is that when people are going through this, like the woman I mentioned that has been struggling as a recent immigrant, I use my platform to call out for help. And every single time I do on a situation of social justice, I have hundreds of people. Dan is one of the first. Susie's always there, like that come and rally and are there to help and make it right. And so I think is the most hopeful we can be, to know that there are people who see it, who see you, who see your struggle, and they think it's bullshit and they want to help you with it. And all you need to do is reach out. And for me, that's kind of, I try to take as much solace as possible in that, because otherwise it's really easy to get real negative real fast with all of the other things that we still need to fix. So that would be my big takeaway.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Susie, thank you for sharing your story and your examples. What is your takeaway for us today?
Yeah, thanks so much, Michelle. I think a lot of people, especially in the audience, are probably hearing many of our stories and they're resonating, right? There are many people in day-to-day lives that may feel like they are alone. But I really want everyone to know you are not alone. There are many other people, women and other underrepresented groups that are going through the same exact thing you are going through. And the feelings that you are feeling right now are very legitimate, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So I love how everyone just shared their experiences. Hopefully what we shared resonates with the people that are listening today. And I just love how everyone just brought that aspect of hope, and we're coming together. Hopefully we'll have more of these conversations moving forward. But
We definitely will.
yeah, one thing I did want to definitely say too is just a reminder, when people think that maybe women are getting angry or that we're maybe too passionate about a topic we are discussing, I want people to know that we are not speaking out. We're just speaking. So that's one thing I just want to share with everyone.
That's good.
And as a reminder for everyone, Susie is, first of all, a genius when it comes to cybersecurity, but also goodpeople.ai is her baby. And I could tell you when Luna Martin and I heard her, we just fell in love with the concept and the idea, and we can't wait until it comes to fruition. So thank you for helping create a better world.
No biggie. Yeah, just real quickly, goodpeople.ai if you want to stand out for a waiting list. Goodpeople.ai. It's just the fact that many job descriptions out there, people are writing it towards like a male figure. And the fact that they didn't even take the time to consider someone else is capable of fulfilling that job is the issue. So that's the reason why I came out with goodpeople.ai to help out just people really be more inclusive and more diverse in the people that they're bringing into the company. So, yeah.
That's perfect. Is it launched so we can go to the website and see it yet, or is it?
No, we
coming?
just have the landing page, but our MVP could be done around the end of August. So we do have a waiting list of people that are interested.
Okay, we'll check it out. Thank you for that. Thank you for your time. Troy, thank you for joining us today on such a short notice and lending your important insights. It means so much. What's your one takeaway?
My one takeaway, this was just, first of all, thank you guys for the opportunity. Very powerful discussion. I've enjoyed what I've heard. We see that there's a lot of work to be done. And if we all, stick together and, come up with solutions and ideas, most of the panel, besides Dan and myself, were females. And I'm a advocate of in women empowerment and just like the statistics I mentioned about, women makes 82 cents on a dollar for every dollar that a man makes. And why does a woman get paid less because they're doing the same job or the same work? And so, just those issues is, they need to be addressed. And, some of the reasons why that women in the end up, long term making less, is because they are the ones that stay home and have children. They're the ones that if it's a loved one that's sick, they're the ones that stay home and take care of the loved one. But because they do those things, those maternal instincts, should they be penalized? And so those are things that need to be addressed. Let's not, they miss out on pay and they miss out on promotions because of those for childbearing and also for taking care of a loved one. They shouldn't be penalized for those things because of that, because we need the women to be a force and a power in our society.
Thank you. So true.
And
all right. Thank you. Thank you, Troy. It's good to see you. All right, here we are. I mean, I don't have any words because I've just been taking it all in and my heart's happy and sad at the same time, right? It's deep stuff. I can't hear you. You're on mute.
This is crazy. It's our third time and every single one has been so different.
It totally is.
Like
but
when we set out to do this,
important.
I couldn't have imagined it being as good as it has been.
I couldn't either. I mean, it was just an idea. Now it's here.
Yeah.
And more so.
And the production's going well. We don't have the same issues last time where it cut out.
Yes, that's
funny.
true.
If anybody ever wants to watch the video of last time, the video cut out.
For a while.
Yeah, about the 2/3 mark. But then it was fine on
It was fine on the replay. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So Michelle, let's let's spin this backwards. Before I get to talking about next month, what are your thoughts?
I thought that having all these people, all these women and men come and support us and tell us their stories is the best way to make change. Not just give people statistics, yeah, it's important, but to hear real people getting the courage and wanting to bring awareness to it. That's what's going to bring change. You know, these stories, these examples, some people had no idea some of the stuff we talked about today, and including me. And bringing diverse voices together is the way that we're going to bring this forward. And we're not going to stop. You know, this isn't a one and done thing.
No. And that was the point that we made. And, you know, I want to thank, so I want to do a little quick backstory. The first panel that we did, we had some last minute changes that we had to make. And I was in a Clubhouse room and I mentioned, I forget what word I used to describe what we were doing. And Ilya sent me a message on the back end, on the back channel. And she said, Dan, you know, I know what your intention was, but it doesn't really, there's not that element of diversity to it. And part of that was the changes that we had to make. But I was so glad that she brought this up, because the entire idea behind this is to provide different voices and different conversations that we could all understand and rally behind. So I'm so thankful that Ilya did that, because I don't know that, you know, people, we talk about not being silent. Well, Ilya wasn't silent, and it made it so much better for us in the long run. So Ilya, you know, thank you so much for doing that. You know, I also want to thank Susie. I want to thank Troy, Stephanie. Stephanie, trust me when I tell you, from having two retired parents, it tends to be that you get busier when you get retired. So finding time, I'm so grateful to her. Michelle has been one of my dear friends for quite some time. So I thank all of you for being part of this. And God knows that nothing would be possible without you, Michelle. So
right back at you.
I do have, before we get to kind of my final word, because I do want to mention a couple things, I want to talk about next month.
Yes.
So next month, we had the idea that while this is supposed to be about diversity, we wanted to focus on a very needed area of diversity. So we decided to do a panel surrounding issues in the Black community. And I put together a panel that was quite honestly insanely impressive, and I'm going to mention in a second. But what Michelle and I realized, is there were so many voices that needed to be heard that we couldn't stop at one day.
Yeah.
We needed to have multiple days.
So it's a mini summit, really.
Yeah.
You know?
So let me provide the rundown. And Michelle is going to be back as the moderator on both of these days. I'm going to be back as part of the discussion, but really in the production role like I was in last month. So I want to start off by saying that the first person I reached out to about this, and who's going to be the first person that's going to be returning for a second panel,
That's
Madison Mobley. I love her dearly. She's an inspiration to both to really all communities, but specifically the LGBTQ and Black community. We have Anne Van Every. Now, if you don't know who that is, I'm not surprised. She's the one that does all of our materials. She is a Black CEO designer that runs the own company, and everything that you see from us directly goes through her. Lola Bakari is going to be on the panel. Chris Murray, who's a biotech HR director, is going to be on the panel. Liz effing Liba is going to be on the panel.
Yes.
We have Future Kane that's going to be on the panel. Troy is going to be back.
Yep.
A woman
John.
that I respect possibly more than almost anyone in the world, a woman that I work for, Luna Martin, is going to be on the panel. And this
John.
guy is going to be on the panel, John Graham Jr. If you have never heard John speak, oh my God, are you in for an ice bucket awakening? And I coined that phrase because it was about a month ago that we were doing a diversity, equity, inclusion room under Thought Leadership Branding that I run every week, every Saturday. And he came in and he punched a perspective that I had never heard before. And it was this feeling of being underwater and coming up and just frozen for the first time. And since then, I'm very grateful to be able to call him a friend. And him and I spoke the other day. His book is the easiest difficult book to read. He is such an amazing writer. He's such an amazing person. And I'm not saying that he's our headlining person by any stretch of the imagination, but I do want to throw special attention to him in this case because I think he's done what so many have needed to do. So I want to finish up by saying this. There's a lot of people that look like Michelle and I that live in a state of ignorance, that live in this idea that the way that we've grown up is the way that the world is. Mm-hmm. The reality is that's not the case. Racism, the construct of race, is a societal construct meant for people that have historically looked like me mm-hmm. to have an excuse to suppress other people. And if we as a white community continue to live in this ignorance, nothing will ever change. It is up to people that look like us to be comfortable having the conversations that need to be had, to have the talks that they may not want to be able to sit in a room of people that may not like you and to listen because it's the right thing to do. It's horrible that 450 years have happened, and the reality is we should be able to switch it on a dime because nobody deserves to go through this a moment longer. But the reality that people are not quick to change, and in vast majority, they have to be ready to face that change, and so many are not, which is why Michelle and I step out and talk about these things and talk about the injustices that are going on.
Awareness is the first step, you know?
So if you're somebody that looks like me, don't look at a Troy Holt, don't look at a Jessica Williams and say, well, here's how you combat this. They're not the ones that have to do that. It needs to be the ones that have perpetrated the actions that have carried on for generations that need to be the first to say, it's over now. We need to stop the hate. If you want to learn more about this, if you want to have an education on what this means, I highly recommend going to lizliba.com. She has a Black Culture Academy. I highly recommend going to plantationtheory.com and buying John's book. And please do not go to Amazon and rip him off.
Yes.
Self-published this book. It costs a lot. Amazon takes a lot.
Let's put the links directly to both their sites. Okay.
Do not sit there and be silent. And if you're white, have the balls to buy this book.
Who wrote that one?
White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. Have the balls to buy and read this book.
Okay.
So,
put the link to that one too.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't say the date because what you just said was so beautiful. I don't.
The date for
next month, the 2 days.
Oh, we're figuring that out still.
Okay.
We're figuring that out still.
It's if you think this one was powerful, they all are, but this one's even more, not more special, but it's very special topic. And kudos to you for this lineup of voices that.
It's time. Let me end here because I think I don't have a choice. Silence is acceptance. You're never going to catch Michelle and I being silent.
Yeah, we're going to keep talking to you. so we don't have to.
So until next month, be healthy, be safe, but more than that, be open to conversation and change.
Listen, yes.
Listen first.
We hope that we brought that. Today was special, Dan. Thank you. I want to shout out to you. You don't give yourself enough credit, but thank you for doing all you do.
I keep getting uncomfortable, but I keep getting told by people
Well,
to
that's-
shut up and say
Don't
thank you.
worry. That's how change happens. You know, we have to
Yes.
keep getting out of our comfort zones.
So I want to shout out what Ilya just said, How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. We'll post that as well. That's another one on
Okay.
the list. There's going to be a whole bunch of resources. Eventually, I'll put it all together.
We'll have a resource page for sure.
Yeah.
Good idea. With links to all the past ones too in one place. We can do that. I'll help you, Dan. That would be a great resource.
I don't know what to say at this point. I mean, we're 17 minutes over.
Let's just end it the way what Lisa just said. Listen, absorb, and allow yourself to change. Those are beautiful words. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to close it with the count with the countdown
Thank
clock.
you all.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
everyone.
all for showing up and listening.